while the Lincoln Project has put together some pretty vicious ads against Donald Trump that were amusing and I think highly effective, there needs to be a question about whether or not Democrats, particularly progressives, want to be in bed with an organization that's run by a number of Bush-era individuals who are pretty terrible and have advocated for awful policies that have actually hurt the country and led to someone like Donald Trump becoming president. So look, I say this as I also toss to a video where the Lincoln Project attacks vulnerable Republican senators. And I just wish that progressive organizations would produce ads like this one.
Someday soon, the time of Trump will pass. This circus of incompetence, corruption, and cruelty will end. When it does, the men and women in Trump's Republican Party will come to you, telling you they can repair the damage he's done. They'll beg you to forget their votes to exonerate Trump from his crimes, ask you to forgive their silence, their cowardice, and their betrayals as Trump wrecked this nation. Every time they had a choice between America and Trump, they chose Trump. Every time they were called to the service of this nation and their sacred oath, they chose Trump. Every time. Learn their names. Remember their actions. And never, ever trust them again.
So those types of ads are, again, I've said it a million times, incredibly vicious. And it's the kind of political ad that we've been wanting to see from the Democratic Party for such a long time. And so to see Trump attacked in the way that we would attack him is definitely satisfying, I'm not gonna lie. However, who are the people behind these ads? And I think it is important to answer that question and give you details on what they've done in the past. So one of those individuals was called out recently by Nathan Bernard on Twitter, and he asks, wonder why Lincoln Project's video guy, Ben Howe, deleted these posts. And if you click on them, they're posts from 2014, where he decided to chime in on what happened to Michael Brown, the young black man who was shot and killed by a cop named Darren Wilson. And in one of those tweets, he said, quote, give me a gun, put me in Darren Wilson's shoes, I'd have shot Mike Brown right in his face. Okay, that is what the tweet said. It's since been deleted, but like the Vanity Fair reported that, like the Lincoln Project's other members, Howe spent years supporting conservative policies and working on various Republican campaigns. In fact, he's a Tea Party veteran, and he helped to get someone like Ted Cruz elected. And so now it's kind of interesting to see that the Lincoln Project's video guy is attacking Ted Cruz in one of their latest ads. Now, Howe also worked for Freedom Works, which is a Koch-funded advocacy group, the Heritage Foundation, and Red State. And by the way, who else works for the Lincoln Project? As you guys already knew, it's a group of Republicans, right? But what have they done in their career so far? Well, there's Rick Wilson, a Defense Department appointee under then Secretary Dick Cheney, and GOP strategist who contributed to Rudy Giuliani's winning mayoral ad campaigns. Then, of course, you have George Conway, a Washington attorney and husband of top Trump aide Kellyanne Conway, who in 2017 was considered for a number of Justice Department posts before turning on the White House. Then you have Steve Schmidt, a top strategist for George W. Bush's 2004 bid, operations chief for John McCain's 2008 presidential campaign, and campaign manager for Arnold Schwarzenegger's 2006 re-election bid for California governor. And finally, John Weaver, the chief strategist for John Kasich's 2016 presidential campaign. And so one thing that we need to keep in mind is, since they are helping, aiding someone like Biden to defeat Donald Trump in the general election, how much of an influence are they going to have on the policies that we're likely to see from Joe Biden? And that is something we should be considered, or we should be considerate about, because some of their ads give you a little peek into what they're all about. For instance, the pro-war rhetoric in this ad called Betrayed.
Months ago, Donald Trump learned that the Russians were paying bounties for dead American soldiers in Afghanistan. He chose to do nothing about it. Any commander-in-chief with a spine would be stomping the living out of some Russians right now, diplomatically, economically, or if necessary, with the sort of asymmetric warfare they're using to send our kids home in body bags.
No, war with Russia would be a terrible, terrible idea. And as was reported in The Nation, to the extent that the ads articulate any political vision, it is a desire to return to the hardline military aggression of the George W. Bush era. This suggests that these ads should be seen as an attempt to stake a claim in Joe Biden's victory so that if he becomes president, he'll give hawkish Republicans a seat at the table. Biden already has a tropism toward bipartisanship, essentially in foreign policy. He voted for the Iraq War and has been criticizing Trump from the right for not being sufficiently hardline on Venezuela and China. So Cenk, please jump in.
Okay, so a lot of the world sees things in black and white these days, whereas we do nuance on this show. So the Lincoln Project ads, in my opinion, are not only great, but they are effective. So now progressives are criticizing Lincoln Project. Some progressives are saying, oh, well, these ads are ineffectual anyway. No, that's not true. They say, oh, they're playing them sometimes in Washington to get under Trump's skin, but Washington, DC is not in play electorally. Well, that's true, but they are getting under his skin and they're getting a ton of media attention. And media attention is more valuable than just running ads. It amplifies your message. So those ads that they've done have gotten millions, tens of millions of dollars in free media. By playing them in DC and getting them into the Twitterverse, it is getting everyone, including our show, to talk about it. That is smart strategy. So that amplifies your message all across the country, including in swing states. So fair, let's be credit where credit is due. Now, the guy who did that ad against the Republican senators is the same guy who used to do ads for Ted Cruz. Okay, that's Ben Howe that Anna mentioned. So now, if they saw the light and they came over in our direction, great. Bygones be bygones, and I'm don't care what they did in the past. But they have not come in our direction. They're still Republicans. They're still warmongers. They're still neocons. So, and is Jeet here at The Nation right in saying that they're just trying to make sure that they attach themselves to Biden and then influence his policy? Of course, that's correct. In fact, one of our viewers just, one of our members just sent that in, tyt.com/join. I read that before the story even began. And so at the same time, that the first ad we showed you is them burning the bridge behind them. So let's be fair and honest about that too. It's one thing to go after Trump. When they go after Republican senators, they've basically said it's unless we completely retake the Republican Party in its entirety, we burn the bridge behind us and we can't go back to the Republicans. Because no Republican is willing to allow them to attack vulnerable Republican senators. No, we read you a story in Rolling Stone a couple of days ago where Republican consultants are furious and strategists furious at the Lincoln Project, not for the Trump ads, but for that ad against the senators. And so you have to give them credit for crossing the Rubicon. The problem now is there are problems to deal with. The minute Biden wins, all the press is gonna give all the credit to Lincoln Project. They deserve plenty of credit, as I just explained. All the credit, of course not. Trump is massively down. He was almost certainly gonna lose under any situation. And so now if they begin to dictate policy for Biden, then what did we really accomplish? We just went back to the Bush days, which were horrific.
Exactly, horrific. And this was something that I tried to persuade you about in May. And I just want to play you this video because this is exactly what I saw Biden getting comfortable with. And I have absolutely no doubt, and I'll give you one policy issue to be specific for why Biden has decided to align himself more with these right wingers as opposed to progressives. Take a look.
What I think we need to have a discussion about is the decision that the Biden campaign has made moving forward. And their decision has not been to appeal to progressive voters. Their decision has been to appeal not only to corporate donors, that's been a given, okay, that's been clear, but to appeal to never Trump Republicans who obviously prefer Biden over any other Democrat who ran during the primaries. And they're going to help Biden as much as they can because they hate Trump and they want to get Trump out and they're willing to work with Biden. So I'm talking about the Bill Kristols of the world. I'm talking about Kellyanne Conway's husband, George Conway. I'm talking about David Frum, the very people who were actually pretty active during the Bush administration, very supportive of the Bush administration, but just cannot stand Donald Trump. And so if you look at how the Biden campaign is operating, they have gone to great lengths to, really appeal to those people to the right of, centrist Democrats.
And look, the reason why I had that instinct back in May is because, first of all, Biden already as a politician, his political ideology is not progressive. So he's more inclined to side with people to the right of centrist Democrats. But at the same time, he's gonna go where the money is, where the aid is. It's a favor for a favor. And if the Lincoln Project and all these Republicans are providing him some sort of material gain in his campaign, of course they're gonna have a seat at the table. Of course they are. And it was reported just yesterday that the so-called progressive task force in Biden's campaign will not support legalizing marijuana. They won't support legalizing marijuana because conservatives don't like it.
Yeah.
So can we just stop? Let's stop pretending. Let's stop. Progressives, unfortunately, the left in this country, unfortunately, doesn't have any power yet. So I just get super annoyed when people keep playing these games and pretending as though like, oh no, Biden's gonna look out for us. There's this, superficial like progressive task force and they're working real hard. No, it's not gonna happen. That doesn't mean that we don't fight Biden on policies we dislike. We absolutely should. But we need to also have strategic conversations about how progressives gain power in this country. Because we are not as powerful as people in the Lincoln Project, I'll tell you that.
Oh, of course. But Anna, to be fair, we never were. So even if there was no Lincoln Project, would Joe Biden be more likely to listen to Rick Wilson and Steve Schmidt and John Weaver than AOC or Bernie Sanders after the election?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And especially if they're donating to his campaign, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's in that sense, look, again, one last piece of nuance here. In our fight to make absolutely sure that Donald Trump does not win re-election, I'll take almost any ally, okay? So he is an existential threat to the country, to democracy, and it's not Mitt Romney. And I have a ton of credibility here for everybody who watched the show. I told you the Mitt Romney-Obama election was half a dozen in one, six in the other. Yes, Obama's way better than Romney, but Romney's not an existential threat to the country. And their policies, honestly, were very similar, right? This is different. Trump does not care about democracy. He will destroy this country. I am positive of it. So I'll take those allies. But the old saying about politics is that you're supposed to be able to, take their money, drink beers with them, and afterwards vote against them. But Democrats never do that. They have beers with them, take their money, and they vote with them. So progressives don't get seduced by the Lincoln Project. Don't get into their warmongering ads about Russia, etc. But most importantly, the reality is, Anna, we never had Biden and the Democrats on our side anyway. That's the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrats working together. And honestly, they've been on the same team this whole time. So it's not surprising that they're in unison fighting against Trump. That's a good thing. But as soon as Biden wins, in unison, they will fight against us.
When you sign up for a spend and save account at aspiration.com/TYT, we will plant 10 trees. Let's save the planet together.